freight train. But my faith would come in and be like, but it's probably not. It's probably not. That's the light telling me that's the direction to go. And I do have that one side. It's like, but you're going to be mad when that's a freight train. But my face is like, go ahead, go forth and find out.
Welcome, everybody, to the Lionz Den. This is episode 4. Again, just want to thank everybody for their subscriptions. It's really important to us. Something we're always kind of asking for. If you could please like, subscribe. We're on Instagram, Facebook, of course, YouTube, which you're watching. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe. Again, just want to introduce myself. My name is Eddy.
What's going on, everybody? This is Daryl.
I'm Brad. It's Alex.
So today is going to be a little heavy. So if anybody has triggers, just kind of giving you a heads up. I'm going to be talking about anxiety and depression today. It's one of those things when we kind of all got together and discussed what we're willing to talk about, what we're not willing to talk about. We kind of put everything on the table and said, hey, let's put it out there. And whatever the reality is the reality. So today we're just going to kind of share some of our personal experiences, some of them dark days, just kind of in hopes that everyone out there could kind of see we all have them. We all been through there. You know, we've all, some of us several times, kind of reading the newspapers, looking on the internet, anxiety's through the roof, depression's through the roof. Unfortunately, suicides are through the roof. And I think with the COVID stuff, that definitely tweaked a lot of that. So we just kind of want to put our situations out there, what that looked like, kind of how we came from it. Grace of God, we're all here, able to have these conversations. So we did come from it.
Yeah.
But if anybody, I don't know if you guys want to just kind of start with anything with that.
So as we talk about it, as we discussed it prior to this, not what we're going to talk about or what we're going to say, but just a topic, I've been kind of searching as to, scenarios and things that I could share that would be considered like dark days for me, bad times. And what I pretty much came up with was a time where I dealt with anxiety, like a lot of anxiety, where I actually went and was like, I know I was dealing with anxiety because I was like, you know what, I need to see a shrink. I need to tell somebody what's going on. And for me to say that, it's like it had to be serious. And I had dealt with it prior and didn't recognize it. I just really didn't know what it was, or I called it other things. One of my first incidents where I dealt with anxiety was when I came home from Iraq. I was on leave. We get some mid-tour leave, depending on the person. It's a week, 2 weeks, however you want to split it up, and depending on how long your deployment is. But I came home on my mid-tour leave, and I didn't do anything crazy. I came back to see my family here in Chicago. And one of the times where I had what I will call, I think my first panic attack was at a local Walmart. And I went to a local Walmart with my mother, my wife, my kids, my sisters, and we were planning a cookout, just something to do on a weekend, a warm day. And in the Walmart, my wife and mother, they went with their list to get certain things, and it was me and my oldest son just in the aisle. He was in the cart, and I never noticed how much is going on inside of a superstore, like a Super Target, a Super Walmart, where you have just a myriad of noises and actions going on all around you and people. And so I was really fresh off of a deployment as a gunner where I had to be kind of alert for my surroundings all the time. And then you literally just, hey, you're up for leave. So you hop on a helicopter, then a plane, then another plane, and then you hop on a long plane back to the States. And, so literally like 2-3 days ago, I was doing operations outside of Baghdad. And then now I'm walking around, Walmart with my kid. And things that would trigger me would be like loud noises. So we walk by the electronics department and you hear all the TVs on,
Sure.
all the radios, all the conversations from people who are shopping, the conversations from associate to associate, the conversation from associates to customers, then people paging over the intercom, and then beeps going off when people go outside the door, then people scanning things. And I'm just recording all of this information. And it was like hypersensitive. And I kind of just felt like I just had like lights going off in my eyes and everything. And I noticed, I'm like, I got to get out of here. But I can't just like beeline out of the store because I have like a toddler with me
Right. Right.
And that would have caused another issue. So I forget, me and my son were going to get something like that we were going to have at the event. And when I noticed, I was like palms are sweaty. I'm looking around, every noise is catching me. So I just beeline back to like the aisles where I last saw my wife and my mom, and literally go down the aisle. I spot them. I beeline to them, push the cart up to them, and like, hey, here's the boy. And then no explanation, I beeline outside the door. And as soon as I get outside, the fresh air just like cooled me and calmed me down. I ended up sitting outside on the benches that's outside of Walmart like I was Forrest Gump. And I felt so good at that point. But I was also like, what the hell was that?
Right.
Like,
right.
What is going on with me? And like when they finished, they came out there and they was like, what happened? What, you had to use the bathroom or something? I was like, no, I'll tell you about it later. I don't understand it. I just gotta, I need to get outside. And then when we went home, we actually talked about it. And my mom was like, that was a panic attack. Why didn't you say anything? I'm like, I don't know. I just had to get outside. I had to get outside right then. And so, not so much a dark time. I mean, it was an experience because what they called it at the time was like, oh, that's normal. It's called hypersensitivity. You're so used to being in a situation where you have to be overly alert that it's not something that you can just turn on and then turn off, especially in that short of a timeline. And but that was my introduction to having anxiety, where when certain things happen, it kind of pushes you back into that, where you experience all your senses at once and you can't really slow down what's happening around you to collect yourself.
Yeah,
So,
I was going to say probably the not being able to control it is probably the part that really is freaky about all that.
it is, because you want to just slow things down, but it doesn't feel like you can. And you feel like you're out of control.
Yeah.
Because you technically are, but it's things that you didn't have control over in the first place that you want to control in that scenario. And so that was like a rough time, but that was like my first big spot with anxiety.
Now, after experiencing that, was that something you quickly kind of addressed? Hey, I need to talk to somebody, or was it sometime after that?
No, it was like I was actually a little bit like when my mom was like, "Oh, you had a panic attack." I'm like, "I ain't had no panic attack." Okay, all right, So I didn't accept it or even address it at that time. I was just like, that was weird, And then went back to my deployment and finished that. Came back and we had to see all these doctors and stuff when we came back. And I was open when they asked me, "Have you experienced anything like that you want to discuss?" And I told them about that, and they kind of gave me a better explanation and told me, yeah, your mom was kind of right, which, that's pretty much everybody's like go-to, mom's right.
I was going to say, for all our listeners, moms are usually right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And they let us know it.
Yeah. And they do say, "I told you so."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she has like a look she'll do. She don't listen. But it took some time before I really, really started to address it. And one of my sisters used to always ask me randomly, like, "Hey, she would like diagnose me while I was doing whatever I was doing, and then just randomly, "Hey, so how are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good. What's up? How's your mental health?" I'm like, "What?"
Right. Like you had to go there with
it. Like she was my she was my psychiatrist. But later on in life, I really started actually speaking with somebody and being open about it, and that helped me kind of get it under control. Like I don't really have incidents now where it gets that bad. I don't feel anxious about things like I used to. but that also depends on life situations too.
Now, do you feel like that's because, you've been away from war and battle, or do you feel like that was more because you had an opportunity to talk about it, get some counseling with it?
It's probably a little bit of both, but I think it's more so because I got the opportunity to express it and discuss it with somebody and be open to answers and therapy. Like I'm an advocate for therapy,
Sure.
so
Yeah, I could say in my own personal experiences, there's 3 major times in my life that were bad, real dark, like suicidal, don't want any more part of this. One, I was very young, which I wrote about in the book that will eventually come out. Another time was still quite a while ago. The time I'll talk about now was most recently, which it's been about 5 or 6 years now. The reason why I want to talk about that time is, for me personally, I kind of thought that I was beyond it. Like, okay, you've been through that twice, you came through, nothing's really going to happen that'll get you that low or kind of drive you down that much. Kind of been there, done that, the routine. And I did a very good job of being able to kind of navigate my way through stuff that happened, which there was plenty of it. And also the most recent time was the sneakiest of all of them, just kind of crept up on me before you knew it. It was there. Mm-hmm. And then kind of like your circumstance, the more I was aware of it, the less I could stop it. And then just kind of got deeper and deeper. And for my personal circumstance, also got into my faith, which got even deeper. Both of you were there, both Brad and Alex. Yep. Daryl and I haven't met yet, but I come from, my father was a drinker, alcoholic, wasn't very existent, especially later on in my life. I was a younger man, he was there, but as, alcoholism progressed, wasn't a big part of my life. Kind of like a love-hate relationship, especially as I got older. But on my mom's side, she had a huge family, extremely loving, big, beautiful Italian family, always there, always kind of picked each other up. Italians are very blunt, very honest. Brad is having the pleasure of marrying into one. Yes. So he knows how they roll.
Well, and you just admitted we all worked with you, so we definitely we definitely know what that comes from.
So don't pull any punches and are very honest, but very loving. I mean, I can definitively say there was never a point in my life where I felt unloved. My mom was a saint. Went through hell and back to raise me. I know Daryl had the exact same circumstance.
Very similar. Yes,
different, but that was something my family I thought I would always have. My Christmases were nothing short of dream, like you saw in the movies. It was the most wonderful time. Our Easters, everything. And about 11 years ago, I had a cousin who was like my brother growing up. We were always together with my Nona, my godmother, and he lived together for a very long time, as long as I could remember, actually. And so those were like the 3 main. And Italians, we have Sunday dinners. So we all eat together every Sunday, especially the immediate family. And so we were just always together, like brothers. I was the only child, but I always looked at him as a brother. And he had gotten killed in a motorcycle accident. And it kind of happened, and it was what it was. It was brutal. What was really tough for his mom was my godmother. So it was absolutely horrific for her. And so I kind of watched her go through that. And also my mom's closest friend. I mean, it's her sister. They were, inseparable throughout their whole lives. And so about 4 years later, my godmother actually kind of pulled out of it, kind of got out of that real dark depression. She moved, kind of got herself set up, and then she kind of passed out of nowhere. So that was tough.
Yeah.
It's like 2 of the main people in my family I identified with were gone. which was even tougher is same thing for my mother. My cousin was like a son to her, and then that's her sister gone. So kind of getting all phases of it, and plus, of course, affecting other family and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an uncle that has, pretty severe MS, has been dealing with it as long as I could remember. Just a beautiful person that has always kind of been fighting that. So he can get involved, but, only as far as his health will allow. But another uncle that moved, and another uncle that moved. So like in that period of a cousin that moved quite a few times. So in the period of that, like 5-6 years, his big family dwindled down to nothing. So I remember like Christmases going from 35, 40 people to like 6 or 7.
Right.
Yes, a huge
and
difference.
it was just something I never thought would happen in my lifetime. I just thought, okay, I'm always going to have that family. I never really got to worry about that. And we kind of talked about it in episode 2. For me, Prince was everything. Like that was my best friend making it through all those tough times. Mm-hmm. And he had passed like pretty soon after my godmother. And culmination of that stuff, work was brutal. We were just really struggling, fighting to get through it. There was a lot of changes going on. Just every day, what are we doing wrong? How can we get better? The ups and downs with that. And it just kind of all went under the radar. And I came from it just a sense of, one, I didn't feel like I really had control of anything. And I just felt like I couldn't make anything right. Like no matter how hard I tried, just seemed like I couldn't get anything right. And in the times in my past, I was single. So, you could kind of close the bedroom, curl up in a ball and stay in your bed. I'm married.
Right.
So what made this time the toughest is being married. You can't just go up to your room and curl in a ball because your wife's like, hey, what the hell's going on? And over time, I seen, I'm making her depressed, bringing her down. I'm disappearing for 2-3 hours because I don't really know how to act. I don't know what to talk about. I really don't know what to say. And for me, having faith young, extremely young, I knew there was a God. I knew my God created me. So I knew I was just as good as anybody else, but not better than anybody else. And I've kind of held that view my entire life. So I've never felt inadequate, never felt like not good enough or whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong, you might have moments or whatever, but in the grand scheme of things, I never really felt like that.
Yeah, it's not something that was a part of like your entire makeup. Like,
Right. Like I was never particularly insecure person or anything like that. Again, I'd have fleeting moments, but for the most part, there's a God, he created me. I'm fine the way I am. And I lost all that in that time. And then I started feeling inadequate. Like, I'm not good enough for this. Why can't I do this? I can't make this happy. I can't make my wife happy. Let my mom down. Can't seem to pull it through at work. And I've definitely had successes. So it was kind of jack of all trades, master of none. So I definitely had successes, but not the ones that I wanted. And then I felt like I didn't really have that backstop of family that I've had my whole life. And like, a mild depression became pretty severe, got super severe where, I remember I don't want to be here anymore. Mm-hmm. And for me, I mean, as you guys know, I've always been kind of the leader, kind of the person that's, the stable, the one that's kind of setting the tone and what have you. And that was making me feel unstable.
Right.
Because I'd call like one of you guys and I'm usually the guy you're calling up and you got shit going on and hey, and I was just like, okay, I got nothing for you.
Right.
Because I don't know what the hell to tell you. And what was really crazy about it was, and even you guys had mentioned a couple of times when we would talk was, I mean, I remember Brad specifically, like, bro, I don't know what to say. I'm here for you. Anything you want to talk about, I'm here. You want to go out, I'm here. You're the advice guy. I don't know what to say to you.
Right.
And it was weird because I felt that, But then also that made me feel even more alone.
Right.
You know, like, okay, who do I talk to? Like, where I need to get this out. I need to figure this out. And I felt like being that leader that I couldn't expose that to the people around me, like really have those genuine conversations of this is what the hell's going on and this is this. And that went that way for a while. And you know, I'm making my friends depressed. I'm making my wife depressed. I'm making my mom depressed on top of the depression she already had from losing a sister and someone she sees as a son and everything. Man, I mean, it snowballed quick. So when I watched this stuff, and again, I'm somebody that thought that I kind of made it through that, yeah, I'll have a bad day, bad week, bad month. I will never get in that really dark place. And really caught me off guard. I was like, whoa. And it spiraled so bad. And for me, kind of became, especially with God, like, why are you doing this to me, man? You know, you're supposed to be in my corner. I'm saying your praises, you know, love you. I'm there for you. What are you doing? And, you know, and it's hard to express to somebody when you say, I know there's a God, because I know there's a God. I can't tell you anything beyond that. Right. So I don't know what a game plan is. Can't tell you what the MO is. Is he active? Is he a coach? Can you, hey, God, come into my life and take over type thing? And I know many people believe that. I can't answer any of that. All I know is he's there. And I was just like, why is this happening to me? You know, why can I not spin this around? I just could not find the light at the end of the tunnel, and it got darker and darker and darker, and was really like, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, I can't, if I can't. And I think the big problem because of that confidence of with God, I've never been somebody who's happy just kind of making it. You know, I'm going to be happy. If I'm not going to be happy, I don't want to be here. I don't want to struggle and, you know, grind through every day of my life. I don't want to be miserable. I don't want to live that kind of life. And because of that, I think that suicide stuff hits my head quicker. Right. And I know it's there for a lot of people, but I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be around.
Afraid during that time to like miss one of your calls. Yeah. Of just like, oh crap. Like, and trying to call you back right away, just knowing you needed somebody. And at least if you're talking to somebody that, you know, hopefully, you know, you would be okay. But knowing you were in such a dark place and being like, well, if I don't answer, what's going to happen? You know, so.
No, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I remember going through kind of the same thing and then being at work. I mean, so it's not funny in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if somebody will find it that way. I remember sending you the song, Dr. Dre and Eminem, I Need a Doctor, right? And it's kind of Eminem kind of flipping it back around to Dr. Dre.
I remember that.
You know, hey, basically me telling you, you know, hey, this isn't supposed to be like this, kind of like what you touched on before. You know, you're the guy that I go to when I'm going through this. I don't know how to help you. And selfishly, I need you to be you, you know, and I remember talking to you, and it wasn't like you were dormant. It was you were trying different things to pull yourself out of it. You were trying different activities, trying different types of conversations, longer conversations. And I remember you saying, I don't know how to pull myself out of it. You know, you touched on it in episode 1, kind of briefly made me actually think about this when we talked about it. Was it doesn't matter how much people you're surrounded by. You knew you had the love, you knew you had the support, but you had to have the will yourself to kind of come out of that. You know, and that was definitely a tough time for everybody. You know, like you said, it was stuff going on.
I want to touch that. You said selfishly. I don't think that was selfish at all. I think that you sending that was a way to kind of express to him that he was needed and how he was needed, you know, with to you, you know. For sure. So it's not selfish. It was just a way that you related to him, you know, the importance he was at that time to you. So I think that was impactful. And you said, like, I wasn't there during that time. I haven't met you guys yet, but I've dealt with that a lot from the perspective of you two. I've known a few veterans, more than a few veterans that's committed suicide that I've known personally.
Oh, I'm sure.
And a few family members, not immediate. But I have known people like that, and the veterans and service members that I've known, I've been in that same position where I don't know what to say exactly, because you want to say what you think is going to help, but we don't know.
Right.
So I think the best thing you can do is be genuine, and that's what you both did, and you felt that, and I believe it related at some point.
I mean, to Daryl's point, you couldn't be more right, because at some point it started, sparking for me that you got to get your shit together. So, at this point, it was my mother. A lot of her family was gone. You have to be there for your mom. You have to be there for your wife. My stepfather was, alive at that time. You got to be there for your friends. You got to be there for your job. You got to get it together. And it was that stuff, because it was Eminem. So I'm always giving him crap about him and his white rappers. And I'm like, really, dude? Eminem, is that really what you're sending? And, when you're in those times, especially for me, because at that time, Alex and I had worked together. Yeah. And we were definitely friendly. There was a line we didn't cross. Right. So we talked about a lot of stuff. I definitely was more of on the mentorship side of stuff. There wasn't too much me relating too much to Alex. It was more, Alex talking to me. But, that was really when that kind of changed for us, because it did. It kind of snapped for me, like, here's a young man trying to get it together, and looking to you, and, you're in pieces. You gotta get your shit together. And that's really what started helping with that. Yeah. A couple big takeaways from that, because it wasn't too long after Robin Williams had committed suicide. Chris Cornell, the other, who's the other? That one hit you hard too? Yeah, Chris Cornell was brutal for me. And even, that's kind of why we labeled this Black Days, the title, because even that, and you would kind of see Chris Cornell in his videos, interviews. He was a guy that had been through some stuff, but seemed like he kind of made it on the other end. Yeah. He loved his family, loved his beautiful daughter, was an incredible singer. But after he killed himself, I started listening to the song. Like, he was in a Black Days. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. I kind of see where he's coming from. But when you saw that, and there was another I can't think of.
Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah. And there was another singer, too, with Jay-Z, did the encore.
Chester Bennington. Bennington. Yep. He was a singer for Linkin Park.
And, having conversations with people, everybody's like, why? He had all this. He's got money. He's got popularity. People love them and all these different things. And I certainly felt that way until being there. Yeah. And it's so strange because, and we did talk about this a little bit in episode 1, is that you lose focus that there are people that love you. There are people that care about you. There are people that are in your corner, because in your mind, you want certain things to happen that just aren't happening. Yeah. And it's like nothing's good enough but that. Right. You lose all focus of any good. The reality is grim in all of us. We've been through the ringer. As bad as things ever gets for anybody, there's something positive there. Yeah. Even it's bare minimum, you're taking air in and you're a child of God. Right. Might be no more than that, but we all minimally have that. Right. But it's so easy to lose focus of that. So after having gone through that, I can see where, unfortunately, and obviously with even, especially like with the Robin Williams, there was probably some mental illness there, but you can see how somebody can be so adored, so loved, yet be to that point where they felt so alone that they felt like that was the only option.
It's the loneliness, really.
Yes.
Is what it is. And that's, even we've all been through stuff. For me, I went through a pretty unexpected divorce, I guess would be the best way to phrase it. Hindsight, it worked out for the best, but at the time you don't see any of that. and you find yourself in a very dark, lonely place trying to make sense of it all. And you're aware that there are people around you. You know, I was fortunate at that time to have you to talk to a lot. And without that conversation that we would have, you know, I don't know if I would have ever made it through it, you know. And you realize when you're in those dark places, and you realize that there are people around you, but you almost feel like a burden on them, you know.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I knew talking to you would help me in that moment, but I also knew, like, I'm sure you don't want to talk about what I'm going through, you know, like, as my friend, like, it's a heavy burden to put on you. But part of what we're doing here is to get people to understand that, like, communication is really important. And I didn't know that at the time. I had to learn, you know, communication. We kind of touched on too about the middle. You know, part of what we're doing here is also about the middle. You can see me where I was, and I'm about to get married, like, you know, but I went through it in the middle to get to where I'm at.
Definitely.
And that's what we're going to talk about. But that, those loneliness, those dark days, you feel like you're putting your negativity and your weight on your friends. They're trying to help you. They don't necessarily know how. You told me to watch Swingers 47,000 times, which I did.
That was great advice. It was great advice.
And
To all our, just a side note, to all our listeners, if you're sad about a girl, watch Swingers. Truest
Correct.
movie ever.
Yeah.
correct. And it,
Yeah.
and it's
It helped,
true.
right?
Man, it did help. It did.
I was just about to say.
validation,
I was
man.
about to say,
Give it to
Brad's a
him.
testament.
It did.
He refused to watch it.
Looking at it now, it's almost verbatim. And you talk about that light. And when you're going through those dark days, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. You see no light. People tell you about the light.
Yeah.
They tell you you're going to get through it. You know, I have friends going through it now. Like, you know, you can tell them till you're blue in the face, like, it gets better. Like, I went through it. And it's hard for them to see it. But that's where that faith comes in. And realizing you're not alone and you have other people. And as lonely as you may feel, you got to focus on those goods. Like you said, you know, being able to, you're walking, you're breathing, you're talking, you know, whatever good you have in your life, like, focus on that good. And it makes all the difference. And it's time, man. Time will pass, and you'll find your way through it with the help of friends and faith, for sure.
I agree. Like, just to what you said, as far as, like, the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm a realist, a painful realist. Like, I hate it, and it's just a part of me. I work on it, but I understand that I'm a realist, and how I got to be that. It's because as a realist, I do have faith, so that keeps me optimistic. I'm not an optimist, but I have some optimism in whatever situation that I have. But I also have a little bit of pessimistic views as well. So when I look at it, things that I've often said to myself, like, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And then, like, the pessimistic side will be like, but that could be a fucking freight train. But my faith would come in and be like, but it's probably not. It's probably not. That's the light telling me that's the direction to go. And I do have that one side that's like, but you're going to be mad when that's a freight train. But my face is like, go ahead, go forth and find out. And then you find out that it's not, and it is the exit to the darkness in the tunnel that you're in. And it's fulfilling, and it's rewarding, and it's not easy because you're battling that possibility of disappointment and it not being what you thought it was. But just thinking about how my faith is what drives me to that optimism to keep going forward. And I just think that sometimes we have to remind ourselves that, because if you don't have it, then you don't have that side that's telling you that is the exit, or that's not that freight train that you're worried about. You know, it's the way out. And so whatever it is, you got to kind of find how or who you need to, when that who can be multiple people, it could be multiple things to get you in that direction and ultimately get you out of that tunnel.
I chased the wrong light multiple times.
Yeah.
You know, where you think, oh, this is it, and your brain tells you, oh yeah, that's it. And would you tell me God loves you, man? God loves you more than anybody I know, because you dodged a bullet time and time again. And that's the truth. You know, when you're in a dark place, you hope for anything and you'll hang on to any hope to the point where you almost manifest, you know, logic goes out the window and you kind of manifest like, this is the right thing. And then you realize, no, that's a freight train. That's for sure a freight train. Yeah. You know, but
and I would say, especially in Brad's circumstance, being there, I learned a long time ago at a very young age, don't pray for a new bike. God, please give me a new bicycle tomorrow, because you're playing a real dangerous game that you're going to lose more often than not. Right. That's not, God isn't Santa Claus. He isn't here to grant all our wishes and dreams. Mm-hmm. He's here to guide us through our evolution.
Or give you what you actually need.
Or give us what we need through our growth. And sometimes it's not the growth we want at that time, but it's coming. And in Brad's circumstance, Brad was somebody I met through work and was just a triple platinum, A-class, great guy, great friend, great father, great worker, just great guy. Yeah. And because of that, I knew God's got you, man. Right. You're going to be fine. There's no way that anything that you want in life isn't going to come your way. Right. Because you're as good as it gets. You got nothing to worry about. And I remember that being such a pure thing in my head, and talking to him, that, because I also know that feeling where you're like, well, is it? And you kind of go from one bad relationship to another, where you're like, throw me a bone here. Like, really? I can't meet better than this? Is this really what's going on in my life? Yeah. And as he said, you really get to a point where you start manifesting that, because you're so desperate for something better that you're just kind of grabbing at straws, because it's like that bad at bat that you just want to take more pitches, because sooner or later I'm going to hit something.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the next one.
When you really need to kind of remove yourself from that for a little bit, 100%. Kind of get yourself together, get your head right,
learn how to swing again.
Exactly, get back in the game. But for me, from a faith perspective, Brad was like the epitome of, he's got you, man. It's there's no way that it's not going to work out for you. There's just no way. Yeah. And it obviously, went that way. But, I remember having those conversations with him, of him really feeling like, I know that, but shit, when? Right. Yeah. And that's the stuff that hurts. The real hurt is feeling like something's happening to you that shouldn't be it family member passing, be it your relation. You want love so bad in your life, and that's not manifesting for whatever reason. You're just not meeting that perfect person, or marriage that's not working out, which, you guys have been through that, been in my struggles and mine. I know Alex went through it for a little bit. For all of us, that's the stuff that gets scary and gets really hurtful, because you're like, man, is this going to get better? It's that dark spot, those dark places.
Yeah, and it really helps you kind of lose the faith too. Yeah. When you're in that, the one thing that you think is concrete, you start having questions on. And when you start having questions on that, then it really, you hit it on the head as far as being lonely. That's the epitome of feeling lonely. Yep. So as everybody's been kind of going around the table, so I made a joke before this all started, right? And it was extremely dramatic. What kind of dark days are we going to talk about? And I said, I'm just trying to figure out which one I want to pick. And, life hasn't been that bad. There's been times that I've had situations that I would consider dark days, and I've been in contemplation on which one I want to talk about on this go. And I think the one I'm going to go with actually wasn't like I was going through any extremely hard in life, but it was the first time I was going through something alone. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to go over it because I hope there's somebody that's listening to it that's going through a similar situation that can hopefully take some of this and help navigate. So in 2014, I got a phone call from, which I don't think I ever thanked her. So if you actually end up listening to this, to my sister Megan, thank you for doing this. But I got a phone call from MMI that I was going away to school. So I was kind of at a point in my life where I was landscaping, didn't really have any direction. Dropped out of college. My poor mother found out 2 years ago that I went to college for like a semester when she thought I was there for the whole year. So, I didn't really have anywhere that I was really headed anywhere fast. And I got a phone call saying I was playing semi-pro football, which I used lightly, right? We didn't get paid. It was kind of an Ironman league. And I'm going to school. Well, I didn't apply for school. Well, your sister applied for you, and you've been accepted, so you're going. And it was a time in my life that was super exciting. I kind of been a homebody, youngest sibling out of everybody, but going to a place that was brand new for me. And what a lot of people don't know is the time that I was there was probably one of the most depressing times of my life. Because one, I was in the middle of figuring out who I was, who I wanted to be, was going to school to be a motorcycle mechanic. So I knew I loved to ride. I knew I loved the tattoos, that type of lifestyle, but I didn't know where I fit in. I definitely didn't fit in the club style life. It wasn't for me. It wasn't who I was, which kind of almost made that harder because there was a lot of that around that I knew I didn't fit with that. And then on the flip side of the coin to it is I didn't do a good job of socializing, communicating. I kind of kept to myself as kind of a hermit. So going through all that, you kind of know what goes with that when you kind of isolate yourself and you don't really do a whole bunch. There's depression that comes with that. But along with that, my grandfather, who anybody who knows me knows my grandfather was like one of the most impactful people that touched on my life, not because of necessarily the life lessons that he taught me. I mean, he taught me quite a bit, but more because he led by example. So you kind of saw like, hey, that's the man I want to grow up to be. There's a lot of things I could take from him that provided for his family, served in the military, which I did not, but he served in the military, was just an old school kind of guy and I also got to meet him when he was a grandfather, so he wasn't so much of a hard ass, I'm sure my uncles could probably tell you a little bit different of a story, but for me, he was...
You met a different version of him.
Yeah, he was the guy that I idolized, so I lost him during this time, and I'm alone. Probably the biggest thing that hit me was it's really when I started drinking. This was a time in my life that 2 years straight, it was not an unrare occasion that my roommate and I would have to go look for my motorcycle just because I had absolutely no idea where the night before I left it. Luckily, I always made it back to my room. I knew it was someplace because the keys were in my pocket. It would be apartment complexes half a mile down the road that I parked it and somehow found my way back, or my roommates found where I was at. Really dark place because I didn't have anybody that I could kind of relate to. A lot of guys at the school were ex-military, so they kind of had their thing going. And like I said, I isolated myself, so I didn't get very open. And I guess kind of the lesson I'm going with it is everything that I went through, and I appreciate you bringing it up when you talked about it a little bit ago. If you hold on to the little things, it makes it so much easier to kind of just take one ladder at a time to get towards that light. I had a group of friends of mine that came and they visited me, and it was a lot of fun to see him. And I introduced him to a guy that I met there that all I did was work out with him. My daily routine was go to school, come home, wait till the gym was empty because I was such a hermit crab, and I'd go to the gym, and the only other person there was a guy who looked like Batista, and everybody was afraid to talk to him. And eventually him and I hit it off. We became friends. He kind of took a shot. And, I actually never really had this conversation with him, but he was kind of a guy that kind of held me to it. So the nights I would go out and I'd be drinking till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and then get up and come home and not know where my motorcycle was because I was so hammered the night before I parked it someplace. And he was kind of a guy that kept me grounded because he kept me in a routine. And I wish if I could go back in time, I wish I would have hung on to those smaller wins. Because looking back on it, that's the stuff that got me through it. Having somebody that outside of just going to the same gym, we didn't have anything in common. If you looked at me, I was kind of like a half in between dad bod with a motorcycle sleeve tattoo. And this guy looked like an iron, rock house and kind of had his shit together, worked for sheriff's department, moved on to a police department. But he took a chance on me. He'd invite me out, get me out of the house, go to do things. And I never really latched on to that till probably 4 or 5 years later. So, like I said, it's not an experience I went through that was traumatizing in the sense where it was extremely hard for me to navigate. It was more that I felt like I was super alone. Nobody could relate to me. And I had somebody that was reaching out, that was doing the things that I needed somebody to do. And it took me years after that to realize, because my friends came down and, that guy's a certain way. My friends didn't click with him. That guy's kind of a jerk, man. And I looked at it as that jerk's all I got. Right. You guys are 20 hours away. this guy stepped up, and I didn't really see that, like I said, till after the fact, because you're kind of clouded by a lot of things. But the message I hope to get across to people on that is, hold on to those little things. If you're having a small win, be open to it and hang on to it. Because when you're in those times, if it wasn't for those small wins, if it wasn't for me going on a day of being proud to kill a half a handle of Jack Daniels in a 6-hour span, 7-hour span by myself, to have that guy banging at my apartment complex door saying, hey, dude, it's time to go to the gym. Where you at? It doesn't matter. It's a Saturday. Where you at? It was type of stuff like that pulled me out of it. Hold on to the small wins. And I wish I would have gone the route that you talked about and asked for the help when I needed it, because I feel like that makes it easier if you have that outlet.
Yeah. But it's not, everybody feels like that. Like they wish they would have did it a little different.
Yeah. Hindsight's 20.
All three of you said something that I want to touch back on, and you kind of went into it in the verbiage of baseball. Teaching people how to shoot, something I did for a long time. We actually talk about going to the range.
Yes.
And
I need it.
You said that after you start getting off target, your day is done.
Yeah. Just gets worse.
Yeah. The point of that is that more bad doesn't ever turn into good. So when we would get people who were shooting, and you shoot a lot. I was an infantry drill sergeant. I was an infantry sergeant. Time in special operations, we shoot a lot. And when people start getting off target, the answer is never shoot more. The answer is always take them off. We'll be back tomorrow.
That's interesting.
Relax and come back tomorrow and you'll get it, because once you get off, you're starting to be frustrated. And once you're frustrated, you're starting to not do those fundamental things that do put the rounds on target, because there's no like miracle creation or device that made shooting better. It boils down to the same 5 fundamentals. And once you get agitated, you lose those fundamentals. And that goes the same thing with whatever you're doing that puts you in that dark spot. And you just keep doing the bad things, keep dating the same type of people, keep having the same type of lifestyle, partying hard. Whatever it is that you're doing, more bad never turns around and just turns over into good. You got to remove yourself from the bad.
No, that's 100% right.
It's a spot-on analogy.
I would say it's a great thing, to take from this. And I think we all kind of touched on it, that when these things are going on, it's really hard to slow it down and kind of see that. But, our hope is in the midst of that, try to find that little small thing just to kind of slow it down, because it does. It roller coasters fast. It gets kind of out of your hands quicker than you anticipate, and things that might seemingly feel like, oh, this isn't that bad, or hey, I could kind of make it out of this. I think just like being sick or anything else, you really want to acknowledge it as quickly as possible and find that outlet, that help, be it a church, a friend, going camping, going hunting, going on your bike, find a different group. I really wish, especially with suicide, because when I look back, and there was a couple times that it was close.
Yeah.
Where I was like, wow, how I was not far at all from not being here.
Right.
And, within a matter of months, life drastically changed. In a matter of years, life changed even more. We're going from having this conversation to 5 years ago, how bleak it was, to here we are today talking about this. And who knows what this will one day be. That would have never happened, be it, a split bad decision.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people feel that, how close you are to that. We all know people, like Daryl was saying, unfortunately, a lot of people that...
Yeah, a lot more than I would want to know.
No coming back from that.
Right.
Well, and I think on the flip side of that coin is the one commonality all of us have from 4 different experiences. And kind of the point with us kind of talking about 4 different things was to try to touch a little bit of everybody here, not one specific example. And I think a good takeaway is if you see somebody going through that, there's nothing too small that you can do that can help. So if you think that you're beyond helping somebody, if you see somebody going through a struggle, sometimes just listening can make a difference, so don't feel like, I know I experienced it with you, when he was going through your stuff, it was like, if we would have known each other, we would have been having phone calls afterwards on, dude, what do we do?
Right.
What can we do to, because that's the dynamic, we both kind of came in and you were kind of mentoring us through stuff, and the tables kind of turned, and obviously only the true impact. We were there to listen, which I'm sure helped, but it's those little things that when you do those for other people, if you see somebody struggling, if all you can offer up is 5 minutes of your time, offer it. Because you never know what that 5 minutes is going to do. That guy for me in Florida, used to tell me, dude, you're good to go. You just got to get rid of that inner tube on your stomach. And he'd keep me focused on something because he knew I needed it. And I just think if you take the time to recognize that somebody needs help, anything you can give them is worth it. You never know how much of a difference that's going to make.
No, and I definitely think that's a huge thing is, what I really, and through you guys, was one of the things I definitely saw, and, my mom, my wife, others, even at work, you can be a lot more impactful than you think. And tons of people that I've spoken to who have been suicidal or I've been really depressed, really don't understand how much people care about them.
Yeah.
That there's somebody that, they're everything to them. And most people I talk to that have been in that circumstance didn't acknowledge that, didn't see that. Because like I said, you're so focused on whatever that thing is that's dragging you down, you're completely oblivious to that. And it's not like it's out of spite or anything.
It's not malicious.
It's not like
you can't help it.
You're not grateful for it. You just so hard to focus on that. And I can say, for me, for Lionz Den, and being a Lion, that that's the real leadership. I don't want a leader that, and it doesn't exist anyways, but a false leader that pretends like never been through it, always, on top, has never been down and got it all figured out. I want the Lion with the scars. I want the Lion that knows how to make it through it, that could tell you, hey, I've been there, wasn't easy, but this is what I did. And that's really what this is at the end of the day. That's what this conversation's about.
I mean, that's how we got to where we are.
For sure.
It's made me way, the relationship stuff I went through has made my relationship amazing because I went through it. I also now have tools to combat that loneliness when I feel it. I know I can reach out to people, I can talk to people, go to church, I can go out on the boat. I found these outlets that give me that comfort, puts me in that place of Zen, and it's huge. And like you said, there've been multiple times we've all kind of maybe gone through this. It could happen again. But now I have the tools to cope with it a little better.
Yeah. Just because you make it out the other side doesn't mean you're not going to walk through that gauntlet again.
Definitely.
The hope with this is that you get to hear how we navigated through that gauntlet, and you understand there's people that are going to walk through it with you. And we hope that you take away the things to help yourself get through it,
Yeah, I would definitely, reach out, especially if you're to that point where you don't want to be here anymore. At that point, you really have nothing to lose. Talk to that person you always wanted to talk to. Reach out to that person that you're always uncomfortable reaching out to.
And if you don't have
learn to play that guitar, you always wanted to play the guitar.
Yeah.
Okay, you got nothing to lose at that point. And I really wish that those were the things that I was more cognitive of that time. Of course, I am now.
Right.
But that's probably the biggest thing I would want to impress upon somebody is that it does get better. It does. It doesn't matter how bad it is. It does get better. Didn't say it's easy. Didn't say it's going to go away, but it does get better.
Yeah.
So please hang in there.
Yeah.
That's a big part of why we're here. Hopefully this could be something that somebody can focus on. We're also all here if you want to send an email.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put something in the comments in. Love to talk to you, if you're that spot. And I will say, over the years, the acknowledgement of all of this, anxiety, depression, suicide has gotten so much better. I know, especially for veterans, they're doing really great things. We actually did something with
We did,
VA recently, and we met 3 of the young ladies that work with Heinz VA, and they were incredible. You can tell that
they were
their heart
passionate,
was in it, super passionate about it. So, there's people out there that want to help. So reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank everybody for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys soon.
All right, thanks for listening.
See you guys in the
Thank
next
you,
episode.
everybody.